Now we understand why the community is so important. So let's get to work building yours. Just like building anything in life, you have to go inward before you go outward. You have to know your purpose. Your community isn't just a group of random people, it's a group of like minded people that have a shared purpose. Your purpose. Have you heard the story of the three little pigs? Building a community based off of I'm a dope artist is like building a straw house. Building a community based off of we're both into fashion is like building a stick house. But building a community based off of a mission, a shared purpose, is the equivalent to building a brick house. This course is going to show you how to build that brick house. All right, the first step to building this community is we have to understand the mission. We have to go inward before we can go outward. So when we're talking about building a community, we're talking about a mission. The first step in building a community is identifying your purpose for yourself in this community. Your members won't be able to connect with a community that lacks purpose, values, and goals. So we have to first look inward and understand your purpose. And so to do that, I usually ask 3 questions. And you'll remember these questions if you've taken the 90-Day Blueprint Live course. But these questions are connected to your brand keys. And we're going to do a whole month on brand keys the same way we just did a whole month on mission. We're going to do a month on brand, so stay tuned for that. But right now, we're going to ask ourselves 3 questions. The first question we're going to ask ourselves is, who are you? That is the first question we have to ask ourselves. Who are you? Now, when we're asking ourselves this literally means, what is your story? What is your background? Where did you come from? How did you get here? For example, I like to tell the story of my father being a major in the Army, and he basically ran our household like a drill sergeant, but he was bullish on entrepreneurship. So he made us read these different books, these marketing books, these entrepreneurship books. And that's how I became an entrepreneur I am today. So that is my story. That's who I am. So the question is, who are you? How did you become the artist you are today? How did you become the executive you are today? Go back in your history and talk about and figure out how you got here. And that's how we're going to figure out who you are. And this is a big part of figuring out your purpose. The next question is, what do you do? You have to figure out who you are before you can figure out what do you do. For myself, I'm an educator. Now, I do a million things. I do streaming, I make content, I do marketing. But when you boil it all down, what is the core of what I do? Everything I do is usually some form of education. For example, when I'm doing content, I'm adding value through education. So I would consider myself an educator. Now, I know you're going to say, hey, I'm an artist. That's too broad. That's too bland. Everybody's an artist. I'm pretty sure 90% of the people, well, maybe 50% of the people here are artists. You have to dig deeper than that. You have to figure out, what do you do? So for example, if I were to pick an artist, let's say I pick Kendrick Lamar. Obviously he's a rapper, but I would say he's a storyteller. If you listen to his last album, he's telling the story of his family. He's telling what his auntie is going through, what his cousin is going through. He's telling what he's going through when it comes to infidelity in his life. You know what I mean? So I would call him a storyteller. So what do you do? Are you a storyteller? Who are you? How did you become a storyteller? That's what we have to figure out, who you are and what do you do. Now, the last thing we have to figure out is, who do you do it for? Yes, who do you do it for? Now, this part may be a little bit of a mystery until you start promoting, until you start pulling people into your community. Because me, myself, personally, when I started educating online, I thought I was educating the artists. But turns out I had tons of executives taking my course and paying attention to my advice. So I actually ended up really doing it for executives just as much as artists. But we have to have an idea at least before we start of who we're doing it for. We have to figure out who you are, what do you do, and who do you do it for. These are the things we have to figure out before we go building a community, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to get to is our mission. Because community that lacks purpose, vision, and goals, that's not a community that will thrive. You have to have a community that's built off of a mission. We'll get much deeper into this when we go over brand keys in our branding course. But right now, what I'm going to do is Thursday on our live, I'm going to pick an artist and we're going to go through these so we can figure out your mission. So make sure you tune into the live Q&A on Thursday. I'm going to pick an artist. We're going to go through who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. so we can get to your mission. So now getting to the mission, let's talk about me, right? My personal brand keys are streaming, entrepreneurship, and family. And my goal as an educator is to share information. That's how I came up with shared information. My audience is artists looking to break into the game. What passion can we share that's mutually beneficial? Probably disrupting the music business, creating wealth for artists, seeing struggling artists' dreams come true, sharing better business practices. These are all things we can share. This is a mission we can get behind, and that's why the mission statement for my community end up being share information about the music business. Or I'm sorry, shared information about the business of entertainment, because it goes beyond music a lot of the times because we deal with actors and athletes, etc. But the point is, we're here to share information. That's not just me. J.R. Mckee isn't the only one that should be here sharing. This is a network where we can share information about the business of entertainment. And so that's our mission statement. And that's what we're going to create for you guys to be able to build you a brick house instead of a straw or stick house. Now, I came up with my title, obviously pretty simple, shared information, because that's strictly what I was trying to do. I was trying to share information. But if you look back on other artists, let's just call them fan bases, right? You have Nicki Minaj with the Barbs, and you have Rihanna with the Navy. But those are some that were created back in the day. Now if you move forward, when people are building these new communities through the Telegrams and the Discords, just simply creating databases like via MailChimp or via Laylo. Actually, now we're sitting here, you're watching this on the new revolutionary version of community building, Grouped. That's what I would recommend for everybody that's trying to build a community, is to definitely use Grouped. But the point I'm making is, now that people are building communities in this day and age, and they understand they have to add value to the community, it's not like Rihanna and Nicki when it was more so just about the music. Now we have to come up with communities like a great example being Money Man. Money Man came up with his community. I believe it was called Big Crypto Money. Yeah, I think it's called Big Crypto Money. But the point of his community was to add value to other people so that he could have all of them in one place. Like, remember, we're building that database. So he started Big Crypto Money, which I think ended up with, about 26,000 subscribers on that community, where he talked about crypto. He talked about, hey, these are the crypto plays I'm making. This is what he was already doing. He was already making these crypto plays, but guess what he did? He added value by sharing the crypto plays he was making. This community wasn't built off the fact that he was an artist. You know what I mean? It was built off the fact of, I can add value to your lives. And guess what? When Money Man does drop NFTs, when Money Man does drop music, his community is the first to buy. Now, this is a great example of community, because communities should have a shared goal that's mutually beneficial. And so that's why we come up with the mission for the community. And again, once you figure out your purpose, you have to come up with the mission, figuring out who you're going after and figuring out what you guys can do that's mutually beneficial together. Having those goals in place, that's what's going to get you there. So I would advise you to come up with a mission statement. Mine is shared information about the business of entertainment. I would advise you to come up with one for yours. So now that we went inward, it's time to go outward. We figured out what our mission statement is. We figured out what our community is all about. We figured out our purpose. Now let's talk about how to go get those community members. So when we talk about building a community, it's all about being a giver. You have to be able to add value to these people's lives. I've always told people, never believe you're more important than your fans. You need to treat these people like they're your family. You need to be giving them a tremendous amount of value. You know the saying, give and you shall receive. Especially in the beginning of building your community, you have to focus on what matters to the consumer. This could be a variety of things, from exclusive products to just being in an open space. You never know. Whatever it is, you have to provide it at a high quality with no expectations of return. Furthermore, concentrate on building one relationship at a time rather than prioritizing quantity in the community. Your first 100 members will snowball into 1,000 and 1,000 into 2,500. Make sure you reward loyalty. Just like any other business, your biggest supporters should be recognized and rewarded. This will incentivize the other members to support even more in order to be rewarded, of course. All right, it's time to get to your first 100 fans. Now, of course, this is going to take the thing that most people dread, content. We're going to have to make content for our social media platforms to drive people into our community. Now, when we're making this content, we have to rely heavy on our mission. Our mission is going to be the thing that pulls people in. We have to put out content that speaks to the messaging and the mission because we're trying to identify those like-minded people, those people with a shared purpose. For myself personally, when I put it out there that I wanted to build a community, I said, hey, I want to escape the algorithm. I talked about artists looking to break through. I talked about artists looking to be a part of the new era. That's our mission, our purpose. I talked about artists who wanted to be a part of a network where they could learn. That is our purpose. When you go out to talk about your community and get those first 100 fans in, you have to be speaking on the mission because you're looking for those like-minded people. Now, just speaking on the mission alone, unfortunately, is not going to get you a massive amount of people into your community. The number one way to get people to join your community is through incentives. Incentives. This basically means I'm going to offer you something that you wouldn't normally be able to get if you join this community. For me, I was coming out with a new book, so I said, hey, I'm going to offer you to be able to read a portion of my book for free. If enough of you join, I'll even give some of you the book. That's an incentive. You have to be able to offer them incentives. Think about what you can give away that's not necessarily costing you a lot of money because it's a new community. You don't have any income from this community yet, but it's something of value to you. That book means a lot to me. It took me 2 years to write that book, and people understand this book has value to it. So when I offer it as an incentive, they jump for it because I value it, so they're going to value it. So when you're coming into building your first 100 fans, think about what can I give away to these people that doesn't really cost me any money, but it means something. What incentives can I give them? So that's going to be how you're going to get your first 100 people in. You're going to go at them with the mission statement. Hey, this is what I'm building. And then you're also going to offer them something that's valuable to you that they'll see as valuable. You're going to offer them incentives. Incentives is for sure the number one way to get people in. Now, when we talk about communities, we have to understand what most people want. Most people are fans, or they look up to you, or they admire you. And so the number one thing they're going to want is access to you. That is the number one thing people want. They want to be connected to you. They want to be able to speak with you. They want to be able to interact with you, engage with you. So when you talk about building a community, you have to talk about access. What access can I give these people? What access can I share with them? Whether that's a monthly Zoom call where we can all get on and I can play you music in the studio. Whether that's real life meetups. Whether if you're a part of this community, when I do have my concerts, you automatically get in the meet and greet. We have to begin to think about what access can we give if we're trying to build our first 100 fans and beyond. So think about incentives and think about access, because I promise you the number one thing that they want from you is access. Next, let's talk about experience. See, we're living in a new day and age where people are just getting used to coming back outside. People are just getting used to reconnecting. So you right now can offer them experiences. Don't always think music minded. For example, we did an experience where we connected an artist with his fans and they went skydiving together. Again, that's that access, but it's experiences. People will always remember experiences. So if you're an R&B artist, instead of doing an ordinary concert, why don't you do something more of a date night where you rent out a restaurant that has 20 tables, you invite 40 people, couples obviously, out of your community, and you say, hey, we're going to feed you and serenade you. That's an experience versus just saying, hey, come to my concert. So when we're thinking community, think about experiences. Now this can go wide range. Again, it doesn't have to be about music. It can go wide range. What are you guys into? What do you feel like your community is passionate about that they would love to experience doing with you? Access, right? So when we're talking about getting our first 100 fans, we want incentives to get them inside. We want to make sure we're giving them the proper amount of access. And then maybe when we get to that first 100, we want to think of an experience that maybe we could do with one of the fans. which leads me into my next thing. These two keys I'm about to give you are the most important when it comes to this community. These two things here, exclusivity and scarcity, are one of the most important factors to building any community and monetizing any community, which we'll get into next week when we talk about how to monetize your community. When we're talking about building our first 100 fans, we have to think of, our first 100 community members, we have to think of what can we offer them that's exclusive and what can we offer them to create scarcity. So for instance, my first 100 subscribers for me, my first 100 subscribers got free access to these courses. They were able to see exactly what we're learning right now, right? So for you, it's like, what can I offer my first 100 members that's exclusive and scarce? It's scarce already because it's only for the first 100. That's how we create that scarcity. The exclusivity means, hey, you have to be a part of this first 100 to get X, Y, and Z. So when we're talking about building our first 100 fans, we have to have exclusivity and scarcity. Now, the last thing I want to impart on you when to talk about building a community, and we talked about it a little bit already, but I need to make sure you understand, we have to be adding value. The good community leader will make sure you have access and will give you experiences, but the great community leader will be adding value. Adding value can be anything from motivation to education to hacks to life lessons. Anything that adds value to the community. Adding value to your community will supersede any giveaways that you could ever do. You have to add value to the community. Again, think about, what do you have to offer that's deeper than rap, that's deeper than R&B? Add value to these people's lives. You go back to Money Man and how he added value by giving them great crypto tips. What motivation can you give your community? What life hacks do you know that you can give your community? If you've been through anything in life, sharing that with your community adds value automatically because it gives them inspiration. So when we're talking about building a community, you have to add value. Now, are you ready to go out there and get your first 100? How are you going to do it? You're going to put your message out. You're going to put your mission out. You're going to make content that expresses your mission and your message. And you're going to offer them incentives for joining. What doesn't really cost you anything that you can give away that's important? It has to be valuable. Then, what access can I give you to me? Let me think of different ways to be able to give you access. Now, lastly, when I get to 100 followers or 100, when I get to 100 community members, what experience can I offer? And of course, you talk about that. You say, when we reach 100, I'm going to do this. This is the experience I'm going to give you guys when we reach 100. And then lastly, as you're adding people in, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, the whole time you're going to be giving them value. It could be as simple as sharing your life experiences, but trust me on this. If you add value to someone's life, they'll never forget you. And that's how we're going to build our community. Stay tuned for next week when I get to the most important piece, monetizing your community. Because the whole point of the community, besides having direct access to your consumer, is them funding your journey. So stay tuned for next week where we're going to monetize the community.